Hello and welcome back to the Life on the Wrist podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a few things that have happened over the last week. There was some significant news out of Hodinkee which I'd like to give my comments on. We'll also discuss two new watch releases which I think are quite interesting. I'll say one of them I'm a fan of, one of them is just, a continuation of a story that we've heard for a very long time. I do want to take a moment. I did get some helpful feedback actually after the last episode, and it really brought to light, I think, some of the things that I'd like to work on for this podcast. And I truly do appreciate the feedback because, if I don't, the only way that I can improve this podcast for you as a listener or for you as a watch enthusiast is to receive feedback from you. And, I can do as much self-reflection as I can, but really those who are interested in the topics that we discuss in these podcasts have the best perspective. And so, you probably know who you are. I really appreciate the feedback that was given. It was really related to the sound quality of these podcasts, as well as sort of the tone in which I speak in these episodes. And I don't know. I'll try my best with the tone. I'll try to make it so that it's a little bit more entertaining. But it's hard to. I don't want to speak in a fake way during these episodes. I don't want to give it more life than it needs to be, because it will then probably come across in a strange way on that side. So I'll work on that, but I will also appreciate the sound quality feedback that I received, and I hope that I'll make some changes and hopefully I can improve upon that piece. Anyway, enough with sort of the Life on the Wrist updates. There was an update that was released, or an article that was written by Ben Clymer of Hodinkee, kind of reflecting on how Hodinkee has changed over the last, just call it 10 years. And, I'm not going to cover what happened, why it changed. I don't think that's really necessary for me to sort of rehash. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably have been keeping up with a lot of the things that have happened with Hodinkee during the past couple of years, and you probably have an opinion about those changes. Now, in Ben's article, he kind of wrote and sort of opened up about the fact that, there's going to be some sort of new Hodinkee, new version of Hodinkee, which is trying to emulate what the old Hodinkee was. And if you think back to when the company started in 2008, a lot of it had to do with focusing on editorial, focusing on watch enthusiasm, and really concentrating on what we love about watches. And so I'll read a little excerpt here, but there will be a link in the show notes to this to his article. But it says, as of today, we aren't going to be adding any more pre-owned watches to Hodinkee or Crown & Caliber, nor will we add any new models to our modern watch business. Instead, we'll be dedicating our efforts to evolving our editorial into something truly special and industry-leading. What will you see here on the front page of Hodinkee? Just more of the type of content that made us a household name in watches, earned us some pretty cool accolades along the way, and helped make so many people fall in love with watches to begin with. You might even see a few old, familiar names reappear from time to time. You'll just have to wait and see. It takes a lot for a founder to be completely honest with their following about some of the things that were not working for their followers or for their consumers. It's a pretty big step. What's really noticeable is, not adding new watches means the commercial sort of side of Hodinkee will be reduced significantly, and I think that was something that followers of Hodinkee, watch collectors, watch enthusiasts were concerned about, because it just seemed like every single bit of information that Hodinkee was publishing was really focused on selling a watch or selling insurance. And with the absolute boom in watch collecting, it makes sense. You're trying to push your business forward, and a lot of people have invested in Hodinkee, and I think it's something that would have happened. So really great honesty from Ben, and it will be exciting to see how things pan out over the coming months and years to come. I do want to make one note though. If you think back to 2008 when Benjamin Clymer started Hodinkee, he even says in his article, I'm looking at it right now, the world of watches has come a long way, and as always, we want to be ahead of the curve. I'll kind of focus just really on the beginning part of that. It really has developed so much in 16 years. And even from 2008 to their 10-year anniversary, it had changed so much. And so, I don't think you can have the same expectations of a company in 2008 as you have in 2024, just given how the landscape of watch collecting, watch enthusiasm, and timekeeping has changed. You can even look at some of the watches that have been released by many of your favorite brands today and versus something that was released in 2008. It's very, very different. And companies develop with that. They have their motivation, which will be at their core, and I think has remained at Hodinkee's core, but they will develop, and the way that they seem will absolutely change over that time period. And I mean, just think about how COVID had such a huge impact on watch collecting. That in itself shaped a lot of organizations that sort of emerged from that time period. And so comparing a 2008 Hodinkee to a COVID Hodinkee is so difficult to do. And I think I'm going to get on my soapbox really quickly here, but, that's why you have to cherish the things that happen in their moments, because Hodinkee in its form, let's just call it in 2010, it was a really special time for Hodinkee, and it was a very special time for watch collecting. And it's fleeting. Time is fleeting, and things will evolve, things will change, and it's very difficult to have the same thing over and over again. Even if you think about life on the wrist, it's changed a lot since 2017 when it was founded. So I just wanted to say that as a caveat with this, because it is, I think, important to address. But kudos to Ben, and excited to see what's next for Hodinkee. All right, moving forward to two watch releases that I want to discuss. This will probably be a shorter episode, but there's a really, really cool Omega that was released for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. If you do not know, the Olympic Games is taking place in, the Summer Olympics is taking place in Paris. It's going to be going, I think, until the middle of August, It's so fun to be able to follow the Olympics. It's such a great atmosphere. Always great to see the incredible achievements of athletes really performing at the highest level. Omega has introduced a take on their their reference BG859, which they actually released a couple years ago. It was really a nice Omega that wasn't tied to the Seamaster or Speedmaster lines. It was sort of the standalone sort of heritage piece inspired watch that I think was really great. But it wasn't produced for a super long period, but they have reintroduced it and they created the Paris 2024 Bronze Gold Edition to celebrate the Olympics. It's a 39mm cased Omega with this bronze and gold alloy case, and then has a really nice silver dial with Claude de Paris finishing on the center with sort of a sector-esque dial, and then it has 369 hour markers printed and a subsidiary seconds at 6 o'clock. And then what's really cool is it's just got the Omega logo and Omega written on the dial. It's powered by the Manual 1 coaxial caliber 8926 And on the case back of the watch, it has a really nice Paris 2024 emblem stamped on it. For me, it's really exciting to see these types of watches being released because I've spoken about this a couple times, but things can get tired sometimes. And this is such a nice watch. I think it's one of the best Omegas that I've seen released, at least in my personal opinion, for quite some time. It's something that I truly would purchase as a watch enthusiast because I like it so much. And what's really cool is it's not a limited edition, or at least it's being said that it's not a limited edition. So these will likely be available, which I think is also quite cool. Please check out the pictures of this watch in the show notes of this podcast because it truly is a lovely piece and a great way to enjoy the summer and celebrate the Summer Olympics that is taking place right now. The last watch, continuation on our Omega sort of theme, we have another moon swatch. This one is called the Super Blue Moon Swatch, which is essentially celebrating what is known as the blue moon phenomenon. And this is specifically about the seasonal blue moon, which is essentially the third full moon in a season that has 4 full moons. And what you end up getting is sort of a blue hue to what the full moon actually looks like. It's a pretty cool piece. I think this is you can't really say too much about moon swatches if I'm completely honest at this point. At this point, I think it's basically like a collectible, similar to sort of collecting action figures or collecting other, maybe if you're a System 51 collector or perhaps a vintage swatch collector. I think this is essentially what this Omega swatch, Blue Moon Phase, Super Blue Moon Phase is like. It's got a panda dial with a silver opaline face. It's then got a 2 o'clock double moon phase aperture that shows off the blue 2 moon phases with sort of a blue hue to them. And then something that's kind of cool is the fact that it, instead of having a tachymeter scale, it has a pulsometer a pulsation bezel around the outside, which I think is kind of cool. I think it's the first moon swatch to actually have that. So, it's got some features that make it somewhat more collectible. I also think it was quite cool. The sale of this watch is going to run from August 1st to August 19th, and it's only going to be available during what's being called blue hours, which is 5 p.m. and onwards. So kind of cool. Kind of cool ways of creating a community aspect around it. So yeah, not too much to talk about related to that, but worth just mentioning on the podcast. With that being said, I think that's actually going to about do it for us today. Sorry for the shorter episode today, but don't want to rattle on if I don't have to, and I'm sure that you would prefer me not to do that. So I think that will do it for this episode of the Life and the Wrist podcast. Let me know what you think about some of these topics. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can send us a message on lifeandthewrist.com or message us on our social media. If you are new to Life and the Wrist podcast, be sure to follow us and share this episode with a friend who might be interested in watches. And if you wouldn't mind rating this podcast, it really does help me out. With this said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and until next time.